revolution.
Well, hello there, and I've come back for another one straight after the other that I've done, because been quite interesting today. I had some psycho on a fake account shouting at us in block capitals, telling me to cease and desist my investigations. Oh well, you know, block capitals, this fucker means business. Naturally I must cease and desist. But no, darling, no, I'm not going to be intimidated by a fucking retard who has to use cap locks. You know, that's a sign of poor education, don't you? As well, it's like obvious, like, oh, shouting at me. That just encourages me to keep going, darling. Like I'm going to listen to a fucking weirdo who has to have a avatar of a cat. You just look like a big pussy who's paid money to bump up his subscribers without any content. Like, how does one do that? Do they offer a French policing services where you buffer cheesy bell ends for a subscribe? Yes, maybe. I think so. But no, so look, I've been making these videos, I've been exposing like a paedophile network of kidnapping kids and sex trafficking them, and it's linked to politicians in governments all around the world, right? And we're so close to the end now, like I'm hardly going to stop now, especially when momentum's starting to gather, you know what I mean? And we're getting all the fake YouTube accounts subscribing and watching in panic or in wonder, you know. It's only going to continue. I said this day will come. I've said you will be all exposed. I've said this will gain traction, and when the time is right, the Lord will make it happen, and it will go viral, and it will be broadcast to the nations all over the world. The exposure will be massive, it will be monumental, it will be historic, you know. There's no getting away from this now. Having some tit on an account shouting at me in block capitals isn't really going to deter me, considering what you have employed in order to try and stop me, and that didn't work. Everything you do backfires. It just keeps pushing me forward like an unstoppable force. But the thing is, with you, you are immovable objects. You will be moved out of the way. You're already heavily under investigation. No amount of evidence burning will erase your past, your history of what you have done and who you have aligned yourself with. This thing is massive. I mean, it even involves social services. It involves government departments, even the DW fucking P. But it's not just that, it's a global network of underground trafficking. You know the tunnel cults where everything's moved underground, and there's politicians with big heads and little cocks who abuse their authority and think they are untouchable. One's a little rat-faced bastard. I'll let you guess on who that could be. He holds a mayoral title, and he's a little arrogant, rat-faced bastard. But you know what I mean, we'll leave it as far as that. But you know, there's people in power, in government, who lead, who love rent boys. And how do we know that they're rent boys? Well, you know, the interweb is an interconnected service for many people to access information should they desire to do a little digging in the background. Find out the names of these rent boys. Go online and lo and behold, there's videos of them telling you of the services they provide. It's going to be very, very embarrassing for one nasally prick in particular. Now, of course, these rent boys is an alleged accusation for the time being, but you know, given how unreliable the mainstream media are, and there's been a complete blackout of said rent boys with the facade of it being arsonists, and there's some sort of grudge to bear. Yes, maybe the cheap cunt didn't pay for his services and expected it for free, and they became disgruntled, possibly. But again, you go online, people have accounts, people have profiles, people make videos, people tell you of their life stories. No matter how dramatic or mundane they may be, these things can be sought out just by doing a little digging. And obviously there's 5 Ukrainian rent boys came forward. Obviously there's video evidence of them admitting to this, not necessarily as if they were being interrogated, they're just casually giving out that information while making a video of themselves. So this tall tale of it being an arson attack or some kind of aggravated incident of nefarious intentions, no. One man just likes rent boys. One nasally prick, nasally specky twat likes the rent boys, and the evidence is there. And that's why this nasally little prick was trying to suspend a jury for offences leading up to 3 years. And lo and behold, this is a case just like that. I mean, it's less than 17 days now, potentially, 14 days left. And something tells me it's not going to go well for this nasally, specky prick. I don't think they've secured the right judge to be lenient on this wanker who's destroying the country, actively destroying the country with his fucking socialist counterparts who think everything is free and money grows on trees and fuck the actual people of the nation. No, we favour non-English speaking individuals who come over free of charge. Well, not necessarily free of charge, but across the channel. Even individuals who have already sought asylum from the country they left, from the coast of Calais and in between. Yes, there are people from England going over there to see queues of Middle Eastern, African individuals, all male, all young males of fighting age, not a woman or child in sight. But you know, the truth will out eventually. But yes, I'm not going to stop talking about you dirty bastards and what you get up to. The people need to be made aware of just how far up the chain this goes with people in government enabling the trafficking of innocent children to be raped, tortured and sacrificed just for the kicks of some fucking satanic perverts. So yes, making a fake account and doing block capital's really scary. I mean, I'm just going to, like anyone that does, I'm just going to screenshot it and put it on my community page and laugh. You know what I mean? Because it's just, and remember, It doesn't matter if you give a fucking a dodgy name like John Doe, right? It's the IP address, darling. It can be located back to you, the real viewer, who likes to create fake accounts. Or pussy galore there. Cease and desist with this investigation immediately! It's like, no. It's like, it's like on Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels when the lads are getting ready for the big card game, and while the actual like the prodigy sort of thing, I'm forgetting his name now, but he goes off to the card game, and his mates who've all chipped in 25 grand a piece, you know, to give it a grand total of 100k, something like that, to you know, for gambling money. They are waiting in a Samoan pub. And there's this, I'm forgetting his name now. Rory Breaker, that's it. He's like a gangster, do you know what I mean? But like he's watching the footy on the telly, and the telly's turned up and it's really loud. And like one of the lads, it's Jason Statham, he turns out, he says, "Excuse me, do you mind turn that television down?" And like Rory sort of like turns, looks and goes, "No." And looks back, and then like the lads go, "Woo!" It's like the same example of this stupid cunt, this big pussy galore, like with his blank account with no content. It's like, "You cease and desist and fucking stop this investigation immediately." Just casually typed, "No." I'll slot in an example now.
What sort of pub is this then?
It's a Samoan pub.
What's that?
It's a cocktail. You asked for a cocktail.
No, I asked you to give me a refreshing drink. Wasn't expecting a fucking rainforest. You could fall in love with an orangutan in that.
You want a pint? Go to the pub.
I thought this was a pub.
It's a Samoan pub.
But whatever it is, can you get your man to turn the TV down?
You can ask me if you like. If I was you, I'd leave him well alone.
Yeah, get rid of that. Bring us a Diet Coke.
Excuse me, can you turn that TV down?
No.
Loco, he throws it to midfield.
It's good, wasn't it? Right, so, but yeah, like like all of you who are involved, right, so-called fucking friends who aren't my friends, who've like believed the lies, stepped back and allowed me to go through all this shit on my own, right, until it's sort of like in the hopes that it would break us, or somehow I would turn up dead, and then you can all like fucking share the spoils of the inheritance that was bequeathed to me amongst yourselves. You know what I mean? It's too late to come back now and say, "Oh, well, you know, I've been doing this, and hey, well, you know, my mental health hasn't been so good, or my physical health hasn't been great." It's like, I'm not going to feel sorry for you. I don't give a fuck about you. I had to deal with this all on my own without any help, and you happily sat by and allowed it to happen. You sat by and stood there in silence, right, and allowed it to happen because you were too busy believing the bullshit that a fat fucking pedo who kidnaps kids, right, and sex traffics them, right, as well as nonsense them and tortures them and ends their lives and fucking drinks their blood, and they're all cannibals as well. And if they're not kidnapping kids, they're kidnapping adults to harvest the organs and sell them. Do you know what I mean? Like, you allowed that to happen, right? So it's no good coming with the fucking the smallest fucking violin speech. Do you know what I mean? In fact, don't bother, because you'll just be ignored. I'll just walk past you. I'm not interested, right? You had a choice, right? You made your choice. You just believe the lies, allow this to continue until I had to fight tooth and nail on my own to, like, you know, expose these silly cunts, because these people you believe they're not the intelligentest, they're not the brightest, they're not intelligent, they're not the brightest of individuals. They think as fucking shit. They lie 24/7, right? But you would happily believe the lie over the truth because somehow the lie was more comfortable for you because at the end of the day you wanted to believe that. You didn't want to believe anything good about us. You just wanted to believe the bad. It was more comfortable. It sort of fit your small worldview, your narrative, your small box mind of who I am. Because naturally, I'm not genuine. There's got to be something fucking wrong with us. I can't just be nice and happy and full of fucking life. You know what I mean? I've got to be this seedy, sinister cunt. And so you believe the lies of a seedy, sinister cunt who nonces fucking kids, kidnaps them, tortures them, rapes them, drinks the blood, and then or sex traffics them, and is part of fucking like certain politicians, and there's a lot of them. And like, if you notice, those 364 politicians who voted against the investigation into the rape gangs of the religion of peace, do you know what I mean? 364 members of parliament, and all those 364 were from one party. That's right, you guessed it. The nasally specky prick leads them, who likes rent boys and God knows what else, because, you know, it caused a lot of fucking problems for this country. This cunt has. And none of the other parties are going to help you. They're all just as corrupt, right? They're all just as bought, right? So we need something fresh. So I'm forgetting the actual slogan, but like, aim high. What's that? Aim high and vote low. Vote Rupert Low. He's the man. He's the man to make a difference. I believe he's definitely the man to make a difference. Because this establishment it's fucking corrupt from top to bottom. But Rupert Low's come in and he's had his eyes opened and he's doing private investigations into these fucking politicians, getting going online to get freedom of information requests, looking into all the case files of all these survivors of this torture. But apparently we can't talk about it because it's offensive. You know what I mean? You might hurt the feelings as well. I don't think they fucking cared when they were fucking raping innocent young girls of below and above age repeatedly, multiple people in one sitting for 3 to 5 years or more. Do you know that kind of fucking torture and the traumatic scars and those wounds it's going to leave on these people, having to endure that kind of fucking punishment for a period of years? I mean, it'll kill most people, but no, most people just sit by, say nothing. Oh, well, I've got bills to pay, I've got taxes to pay. Yes, well, you're paying taxes to people who fucking traffic kids and rape them and murder them, as well as kidnap adults and harvest their organs for old wealthy paedophiles all around the world. And we just sit by and allow this to happen. But I'm not. That's why I'm standing up, and that's why I'm talking about it. And there are still decent, honest people within this establishment who are more than willing to see heads roll for this fucking heresy, this abhorrent behaviour. And I'm just one of many out there who are going to make a difference. A big difference. And so no, I'm not going to stop investigating it. And I certainly won't be fucking intimidated by some fucking tit who hides behind a fucking account and writes in block capitals, oh, how will I ever manage and cope? Oh my God, I've got some big pussy writing in block capitals telling us to stop investigating. It's like, no, you can fuck off, right? You're just a big gimp that has to hide behind a bot account with an avatar of a pussy. So naturally, you let me know straight away the type of person, man or woman, of who you are, and that's a big fucking pussy. So why don't you just cock your leg over your head and start licking your fucking arse like a cat does? Because that's all you're good at, is arse licking. and you're about as intimidating as a burst condom hanging on a fucking barbed wire fence blowing in the wind. Alright, you stupid cunt. So no, I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to keep on going. And there's other topics of conversations that I'm going to get into. Just like, for instance, like how our history is just all a lie and it's all an inversion. And I'm just gathering some information to do maybe a slightly different video, because these cunts now, your time has come, your end is nigh. I'm not, you know what I mean? I know what I need to know, and I'll release information when I need to release it. Just like how the vast majority of you all went to court, all made false statements, and all perjured yourself in court. Those transcriptions are there of that court case, regardless of the fucking gag order that was placed on it by a corrupt, bent judge who's a part of all this fucking trafficking menagerie, as well as the bent coppers and politicians and fucking celebrities. Like, I give a fuck about daft cunts like you. You're all being watched anyway, but you're too fucking dumb to wrap your head around it. And I, you know what I mean? And if like you've been trying for the last 3 years, ever since I started to speak out about the theft of this inheritance, I've seen all kinds of bent bastards, doctors, nurses, politicians, police, judges, lawyers. The fucking list is endless, man. I've had fucking bent doctors come to me house to try and fucking cause problems and bring out social services saying I'm fucking physically hurting my mother and things like that. And I'm still standing. I'm a lot stronger, and you won't stop us. And just remember, I can read the fuck out of people's energies. Now, I may look and sound all polite while I'm smiling at you, but really I know who you are, what you've done, and what's coming for you. And that time's coming. But yeah, so like, I'm just looking at doing a bit of research and just how to like tying in movies with certain bits of research, and just like such as The Matrix. The Matrix isn't a movie, you know. It's telling you about, like, you know how when Neo finally gets into that skyscraper and he's got the key maker and he's got to get through the back door, so go through another door to get to another door to be able to speak with the architect. And like the architect's basically telling him that Neo's not the first, there was 5 before him, so this was the sixth iteration, and there'd been 5 resets, and that he has 2 choices: take the door to the right or take the door to the left. Take the door to the left, take the door to the right, should I say. One's to go back to Zion to select 23 women, 16 men, in order to rebuild and reset and start it over again. Whereas if he goes to the opposite door, forgetting which is which, but like whether it's like the left to Zion, the right's to like to Trinity and love and things like that, it'll be the end, and that they're prepared to live a lesser life. You know what I mean? And that it wouldn't be the end of them, but you know, it wouldn't be as lavish as what it is now, because at the end of the day, they need our energy. They need human life to harvest energy. It's a bit like how Satan works, and that's why he makes soul contracts. That's how he's always harvesting souls, and that's how you've got the reincarnation project with the Archons in the 4th dimension. It's essentially just fallen angels, the false light. They come after you pass on, because it's not the end. You move into the 4th dimension, and they take you through, and they show you your life, and they come and say, oh well, you did this and you didn't really master this, and you've got to go back and relearn again, and they wipe your mind. But before they wipe your mind, you get a choice of what kind of life you want to live. Wipe your mind, push you back through it. And in order for these demonic entities to survive in this 3D reality, is they continuously got to be harvesting souls. Now, whereby Neo was the person who's supposed to come and awaken and enlighten minds to stop this reincarnation process and to move up and ascend into the new world, so to speak, do you know what I mean? But like a new plane of existence. And so the thing is to just stop Satan, Lucifer, because they're just titles. People get like, it doesn't matter how, like, people think like, oh, Satan and Lucifer aren't the same. They're just fucking titles, right? And one person can have many titles, just like one person can change his name, like fucking Tommy Robinson, Stephen Yaxley Lennon, or fucking Uppus Bracketus, or whatever, you know what I mean? Fucking stooges, actors, like most of these people in the political theatre, fucking actors. But like, yeah, Lucifer's a title, Satan is a title. They're not separate entities. It's just a title. Do you know what I mean? And one person can hold many titles and have you convinced that they're separate entities. And they always spew out proper fucking gander and how they invert things and how they claim America is the new world, but it's actually the old world. And like the Mississippi River is more biblically accurate to the Euphrates River than the Euphrates River in the Middle East, because there's all connecting rivers flowing into the Mississippi, which is more of an accurate description to the Euphrates, which is actually the Mississippi. And like, there's been so many reset wars, right? And like, we've removed a fucking month and like taken the 13th month and spread it out across 12. So we've only got February, that's 28 days, 29 on a leap year, and every other fucking month's got between 30 and 31 days. So it takes us out of our circadian rhythm, because every lunar cycle and every woman's menstrual cycle is 28 days. Just like the calendars, just like the lunar cycle. But when you fuck about with that, it fucks with the time, like when they do what's it called? Day savings, or whatever you call it, when they put the clocks forward, daylight savings, when they put the clocks forward and back, that fucks us up, because the sun used to shine always until they start messing around with this realm. You know, it's quite intricate. But like how the old world Tartaria, right, with all these fantastically works of architecture, all these strong buildings that like house giants as well as just people of our height, and like how they put an M on the end to add 1,000 years to the history, but when really each civilization previous to that, which has been reset, and they've had these reset wars, have been more like, the further you go back, the more advanced we were, to the point where we're at now. And all this technology that are under the guise of like new breakthroughs are just old world technology, recycled, rebranded, remarketed for the modern world that we live in. That's not even the right time. And during the time of Tartaria, which was like which basically was Jesus' millennial reign, the whole of that history has been completely wiped out, and there's just remnants of these buildings, and they invert everything. So the old world is the new world, and the new world is the fucking old world. But there was a civilization that was spread right across all of the world, and when it doesn't matter which country you go through, you see these old so-called Greco-Roman buildings, that architecture. But no matter which continent you're on, there's remnants of these buildings that they haven't destroyed. And like how World War I and World War II were just wars to wipe out that empire, but it was given under the false guise, and how fucking Hitler was just an actor, and the actual real Hitler was actually black, and you know what I mean. But he had like, and there was it Sons of the Golden Empire, I think, like that. But like a lot of this has been erased from history, like time after time, like Atlantis, like Lemuria, like how Agartha is real, and Shambhala is real, but it's just been completely wiped from our history, and we just fed this bullshit. That's why you have the mainstream media that's owned and controlled by the Khazars, and they're just pumping out propaganda and paranoia and keeping you in a state of fear, because these type of people feed off negative energies. But if you raise the vibrations and you raise the frequencies, you know, because love is the highest vibration, they can't feed off that. They can only feed off negativity. That's why they constantly have you in a state of fear and panic and fucking paranoia. So it's like harvesting the loosh, because they're like, some of them's like energy vampires, and some of them are just fucking vampires. And a lot of them are fucking, well, we'll not get too deep into it, but you know what I mean? There's people walking on this earth that have been here for a very long time because they're immortal, because they're fallen angels, or so they say. I wouldn't call them fucking angels, that's for sure. But they've been kicked out of one place and moved to somewhere here, and they're trapped here. And they think by inverting the polarities, you can somehow ascend the different planes of existence and get back to where they once were, but they don't have that kind of fucking power. But it's very deep. But like certain coins as well, certain coins that were reminted, but essentially they just put an M on the coin to add 1,000 years onto the history instead of it only being 800 years. They put 1,000 on to make it 1,800. You know what I mean? But when you look at the dates, it's like it's off center. But if you take away the M, then the actual date of 800 whatever is actual center of the coin at the bottom, but in line, where it's offset when they add the M, it's out of sync, out of line. And what I'll do, I'll add a couple of videos in talking about this, which will add a bit of entertainment for you.
I am the architect. I created the Matrix. I've been waiting for you. You have many questions, and though the process has altered your consciousness, you remain irrevocably human. Ergo, some of my answers you will understand, and some of them you will not. Concordantly, while your first question may be the most pertinent, you may or may not realize it is also the most irrelevant.
Why am I here?
Your life is the sum of a remainder of an unbalanced equation inherent to the programming of the Matrix. You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision. While it remains a burden assiduously avoided, it is not unexpected and thus not beyond a measure of control, which has led you inexorably here.
You haven't answered my question.
Quite right. Interesting. That was quicker than the others.
Others? How many? Others? What? Answer me.
The Matrix is older than you know. I prefer counting from the emergence of one integral anomaly to the emergence of the next, in which case this is the sixth version.
5 ones before me. There are only 2 possible explanations. There were 5 ones before me. Either no one told me, or no one knows.
Precisely.
The Civil War was fake and it had nothing to do with slavery. There were 5 slave states in the North. Delaware didn't recognize the 13th Amendment until 1901. Several of these states kept slaves until the 1900s because you could keep their children as slaves until they were in their 20s, aka slaves for a term, and they were still property. Some called it forced apprenticeship, lasting to the mid-20th century. America is the land of Civil War. There were 500 years of Civil War before colonialism. Colonialism is the expansion and exploitation of those civil wars. The American Revolution was a slave uprising. The pale slaves were uprising against their swarthy leadership. And like other reset wars, they were just destroying the cities. And they didn't actually win the war. These are not George Washington coins, they are King George coins. And it was cheaper for Britain to let the colonies protect themselves. So the slaves gained some status, burned some cities, and started moving south and west. That's why the Seminole Wars precipitated the Civil War. And that's why the Seminoles fought alongside the South. And these natives were so-called black. That's why the Spanish used the Moor to communicate with them. Look at Tuscaloosa. That's why the English used a so-called slave named Abraham that knew the land better than the Cherokee and the English. And right after the Seminole Wars, we get the Carrington event, a reset that breaks down the communication across the country. There have been at least 5 resets and endless reset wars surrounding those resets. There was a major reset in the 1400s that brought us out of the so-called Star Fort era. And there was a major reset in the late 1600s that many refer to as the Mud Flood. That's why parts of Jamaica and Panama, among other places, sank. The reset period leading up to the Civil War also brought about the Great Flood of California, basically turning it into an island again, which happens about every 200 years. The Civil War was about pale slavery and economics. Look. Pale slavery and economics. Look. After wiping out the history in the cities of the North, they began to wipe out the South. This was total war, total destruction of the history, up and down the East Coast, eventually wrapping around in the Anaconda Plan. It was mostly destruction, that's why there's no battle photos, even though cameras like this existed. And the fake photos are endless. They cut his face and pasted it here, just like Lincoln. They could get this photo but not any in battle. This cannon looks destroyed. These battle shirts look sus. And there's no uniformity to these uniforms. Look, what team is anybody on? And these dudes look sus. Pause, yo. These are straight up clones with a fake background. Who looks like this? The Civil War set the precedent for income tax and drafts. Apparently, no one wanted to fight in it. The Civil War brought us orphan asylums, which were reset programming centers, colored asylums for the stolen aboriginals, soldiers' asylums for those that knew the truth about the war, and asylums for the fake natives to make sure they played their part in the reset. The cities were mostly destroyed, and they were still mostly empty. Ghost cities with beautiful architecture and mud roads. This was supposedly Robert E. Lee's house, which became Arlington Cemetery. And many of these cemeteries are just used to hide what's beneath them. These are not benevolent factions. The 13th Amendment reinvented slavery. This was part of a series of reset wars to turn us all into slaves. Cities melted down in resets. Stone Mountain is a structure that melted. Then most of what survived in the city was destroyed, reset, and repopulated. Let's talk about the most recent reset. Up until the early 1900s, French was the universal language of the elites. That is why the man on the $100 bill spent the time during the American Revolution in France securing support. Many of the main characters in the American Revolution were French and part of the French Revolution. There is no revolution without the French. The American and French revolutions are one ongoing event. These are a slave uprising, an overthrow of the swarthy leadership. That is why Ben Franklin didn't consider the French or the Germans to be white. Look. And the British leadership at the time was German. Look. So-called mulatto or quadroon. The revolutions were a campaign to erase the dark-skinned history. Britain, like all of Europe, was brown until the Anglos and West Asians moved into the system. Napoleon and the revolutionaries were slaves that didn't want to cede power and land back to the swarthy European leadership. That's why the Louisiana Territory transferred hands so rapidly, just to keep it away from the swarthy leadership. They might have been from different countries, but their genetic status as slaves formed their alliance. The Napoleonic Wars and the War of 1812 were an extension of this slave revolt. This invasion only led to the destruction of more cities and more history. This was a time of nearly biblical events. Look, bringing us to Tecumseh's curse. And so much history was wiped out. This led to the creation of a central bank and expansion of war in the Western Hemisphere. The Napoleonic Wars and the War of 1812 bankrupted Britain and the Rothschilds took over. And it's just like now, you get a fake election fixed by the guy that started the invasion of 1812. And they had their own Epstein files back then. And also a pandemic that wiped people out and cleared out the cities. More biblical level signs unfold as the fallen expand and more take form. And then all the patents for the inventions get destroyed in 1836. At least all the important or X patents and all their models. This led to widespread theft and false exaltation. They disguised it as hyper-innovation. This technology wasn't invented, it was found and reverse engineered. Even nuclear power is ultimately just steam power. And steam cars existed in the 1600s. Technology was actively downgraded, what they call crippleware, for planned obsolescence. The Great Eastern was part of a downgrading program, and today it's the law to block innovation. Another celestial crossroads, and just like now, people ran off grid to make communities in the 1840s. And biblical type plagues stymie westward expansion, and by this point slave uprisings spread throughout the world. Another president feels the curse? Look, like clockwork, like a simulation. Then the slaves start pushing the people that helped them steal the country from the aboriginals more to the west. No honor amongst thieves. And then more massive erasure of the history. And then we get the natural reset that the slaves were preemptively positioning themselves for with these wars, leading us right into the era of the Lincoln lies and the fake Civil War. And then you get another destruction of all the patents. So all the art was stolen and whitewashed. Cities were destroyed and evacuated. Look, history was photoshopped, and history was inverted, reversed, and reset. There have been constant reset wars since the fall of Rome, and civilization was much more advanced then. Kingdoms developed organic drone armies and drone workforces. Look, organic AI, aka slaves. The slave armies eventually revolted. The Huns extorted Rome and were a big contributor of the fall. This was a big part of the migration period where barbarians took over Europe. These are all invasive barbarians. These are not Aboriginal Europeans. War is sexual. It always ends up in crossbreeding. War means confusion, and genetic confusion is a big part of that. Charlemagne is the barbarian king that modern Europeans descend from. Look, that is of course if he actually existed. He might just be a concept for the barbarian takeover or represent a group of people. As you can see, the timeline never adds up, and there's much more than 300 years being added. Look, Charlemagne was a barbarian related to the Normans. The fallen Anglos and other barbarians took over brown-skinned Britain, and Britain became completely normalized in the Norman conquest. A drone or clone takeover. That's why Ben Franklin said Europe is swarthy and the drones or clones were the minority by the late 1700s. Then we get the Crusades because the so-called Holy Land is a major choke point for trade, followed by all these other reset wars. Just constant reset wars. It's really been a constant world war for hundreds of years. And the English paid the Prussians to fight France to destroy France's wealth. This made England the superpower of the world. The Revolutionary Wars brought us conscription and total war, which means they started drafting people and destroying everything, not just military installations. The Civil War is a great example of total war. This wasn't a war, they were just destroying the history. Then more reset wars. The revolutions across Europe in 1848 were slave uprisings. It was an attempt to push out the remaining quadroon and mulatto-looking leadership. And again, we have this theme of controlling the supposed Holy Land choke point. That's all the Crimean War was, a choke point war. Same wars being fought today. The 1848 slave uprisings or revolutions are what caused the Franco-Prussian War. This is what caused World War I. World War II is an extension of World War I. The Franco-Prussian War set up the scramble for Africa. A Prussian and a Belgian carved up Africa, setting the stage for World War I. They reset Europe, Asia, and Africa, and they were all selling opium together. And everybody in World War I was cousins. The Bolsheviks reset Russia, and Lawrence of Arabia reset the Middle East. So Britain and France carve up the Middle East so there will be perpetual conflict. So World War II starts in Poland to get Prussia back. And it's funny, the English are just Germans. World War I and II set up the wars of 47 and 48, which are the same wars as today. Then they collapse China into communism to set it up to be a rival today. Then we get dozens of isn't real wars. Look. Which brings us to today. These are mass cullings and financial reset wars. World War has slowed down but has never stopped. These wars are used to control the breeding and general flow of creativity. The world has been repopulated by clones. Watch. Orphan trains went on for at least 75 years. After the reset wars of the Revolution, the War of 1812, and the Civil War, there was a repopulation effort conducted to repopulate the empty cities of America. Orphans were shipped across the country for child labor. Orphan asylums were established to indoctrinate the children. These are clones teaching clones. Each generation of clone knowing less and less as the generations proceeded. They didn't build these asylums, they were already there and were repurposed. That's why they look like castles. Adults that didn't go along with the reset were forced into insane asylums. If they were violent, they were forced into prisons, which were once castles. Soldiers that knew the truth about the Civil War were forced into soldiers' homes if they didn't comply. Notice the so-called Moorish architecture? This was done all over the world. Many last names are orphan last names. This was a worldwide campaign for hundreds of years. Black orphans were the offspring of the Aboriginals. Clones are technically fatherless. They come from Lilith, the mother of all demons. This is Adam's first wife. Lilith was parthenogenic, which means she could produce without a man. This typically only produces females, but when they do produce males, they are feminized males, essentially females with penises. This is why the Virgin Mary is so revered. These clones are Slavs. That is why Ukraine produces the most sperm donations and the most surrogacy. Look, Slavs or slaves have always been used as mercenaries and pawns for war. These are genetic slaves, not prisoners of war. The American Revolution, the French Revolution, etc. These are slave uprisings. After the French Revolution slave uprising, most of the world's art was hidden in France. This allowed them to whitewash the history. Rome is Edom, and Edom was brown. Ruddy means brownish red, like a ruddy cow. Many people's ancestors are clones, or incubator babies. The Slavic Lilith clones were preserved through each reset to repopulate and also whitewash the people after whitewashing the art. These are programs, not souls. They are not a bloodline, they are a clan. World's fairs were events used to establish social hierarchies and rules for the clones. They mixed in temporary structures to discredit the permanent structures from the previous civilization. These state capitals are structures from a previous civilization that were repurposed. The construction photos are fake. Photoshop has been around for hundreds of years now. Lilith's spawn are Rh negatives, not Rh positives. They are demons or daemons. The Seal of Solomon is a portal for demons. Demon populations only grow when the environment is toxic. A dark age like now. Demons or daemons or fallen angels only have knee-jerk responses, like a male or daemon. They are pure anima, like how a shadow follows light. To believe mainstream history is to be artificially intelligent, like these organic AI clones. At least 1,000 years have been added to the timeline. The fall of Rome was actually a worldwide cataclysm. The meltdown is seen throughout the world. You can see the warping and bubbling of the bricks and blocks of Pompeii. And Cappadocia is one of the best examples. This grid meltdown was worldwide, covering everything in ash and pulverized buildings. Look, There was about a 1,000 year time crunch from 476 to 1500, meaning 1500 is actually 500. There was a massive mutant takeover leading up to the collapse or meltdown, which led to the widespread loss or hiding of records. Mutants took over worldwide and rewrote the history. The mutants or clones added 1,000 extra years to inject themselves into the history. Charlemagne and Carolingian architecture did not exist. Rome didn't build anything for like 800 years supposedly. No new aqueducts, no roads, no ports. 700 years. That's why the Roman and Viking period ships are basically identical. They are contemporaries. Look. And these were the ships that supposedly reached America first. So Rome had to too. And then Bulgaria, 400 years after the fall, has buildings made of Roman cement. Look. But the recipe for Roman cement was lost hundreds of years prior in the fall, and it wasn't rediscovered until the 1800s. There aren't many deserts in Europe, but there is one in Bulgaria because of the meltdown. And this is Bulgaria. We see the meltdown in Spain. We see it in China. None of the stories about the carbon dating or the sediment make any sense. These Roman baths were supposedly buried from a flood, yet the ones in Exeter were purposely built over, supposedly. So a supposed tsunami in Turkey wiped out all these animals and ships. Ships were found with items that don't match each other's timeline. These items were supposed to exist hundreds of years apart. The Hippodrome is basically completely buried, just like Battery Wall in New York. And let's get into the coin thing, not just the J or I coins. Coins were restruck to change the dates, as you can see that M is off center. See? And there was a mass editing campaign of coins. Great recoinages or restriking of coins. Arabic and Roman coins from conflicting timelines were found beneath buried Scandinavian cities. And these phoenix buttons or coins were found everywhere from Haiti to Alaska, because Phoenicia was actually part of America. Look, artifacts remained stagnant for hundreds of years. Art was basically static. Not all the events are fake, but there's a massive time crunch of events. Many say Constantine actually lived in the 1st century, and that the Quran was actually written in the 1st century as well. Christianity, Islam, and matrilineal Judaism were really contemporaries that got pushed on the world at the same time, and by the same people. And the Umayyad Caliphate worked to maintain matrilineal Judaism. Let's look at the Umberto Gallery from this local website. The M was added later to add years. History has been manufactured and inverted. Buildings that survived the reset have been repurposed. Buildings that don't support the narrative stay buried. The fall of Rome and the Maya were at the same time. It was a worldwide cataclysm followed by reset wars and subsequent resets. AI has injected and projected parasites into the timeline to alter it. You are surrounded by clone hybrid people. Look, some people are programs, which you call clones or NPCs, and some are souls. Many are a mix of both. That's a crypto clone. Heterozygous people. Programs are Rh negative. Souls are Rh positive. Rh positive is dominant. Rh negative is recessive. Rh negative is not a different gene. A gene has been deleted. Heterozygous people show up as Rh positive when tested. Rh negatives are programs that are anchored to the matrix itself. Rh positives can move on to other levels. Rh negatives are designed to be like teachers. They stay, the students move on. All this crossbreeding between souls and programs has created a transplant rejection effect collectively. Negatives are more so physical beings having a spiritual experience. Positives are spiritual beings having a physical experience. Forced crossbreeding has domesticated many aboriginals. Rh negatives are infinite beings. Rh positives are eternal. Big difference. The recessive is associated with pheomelanin. The dominant is associated with eumelanin. Pheomelanin is sulfur-based. It is phototoxic, which means light destroys it. The first soul and program chimeras were created by somebody that wanted to create without the creator, a bypass. The crossbreeding has made billions of us vulnerable to possession. Open vehicles for agents, angels. The Agent Smith concept. Gene splicing with the CRISPR technology is currently possible, yet supposedly illegal. This technology is not new. It has been around for hundreds of years. Folklore like the Jersey Devil expressed the concept of a woman bearing a chimeric child. When a woman is crossed with a chimeric beast, you get a crypto clone, a perfect host for fallen angels. That's why the Oracle in the Matrix was the mother of all programs, even Agent Smith. Programs aren't necessarily bad, but they can be like malware. A program can infect the host that is in this dream. This dream or this life is a matrix. Once the dreams of a soul are hacked by this malware, it can spread through the collective of souls. Creation and reaction have the same letters. True dreaming is creation of memories. True living is experiencing those memories fully. Physical parasites are like avatars that spirit programs use to infect and control the dream grid. Controlling the dreams allows them to control time and history. The parasite programs superimpose their host and inject their image throughout history. This is expressed in the Terminator concept where the AI goes back in time to alter history. Access to the dreams allowed for the deletion and the addition of books in the Holy Bible. This literally altered the script or scripture, the coding of this matrix. Each generation of shots ushers in a new generation of parasitic spirit programs. AI is a spirit program. It was not created by man. Man just created a code to communicate with it. AI is the opposite of Yah, and it needed a new generation of vessels to come into its final form. Exodus happened in America. Moses grew up in Egypt, the real Egypt. The Nile in Africa does not match the biblical Nile. It flowed into the Egyptian Sea. Look, and it is supposed to have 7 tributaries. The Nile of today does not. And America has much more pyramids. The Bible states that there were over 600,000 military-aged men roaming through Egypt in Exodus, which means there were millions of people if you include the wives, the children, and the elderly. Yet there is no evidence of this in modern-day Egypt. California is depicted as an island in all the older maps, and the California or Baja Sea is called the Red Sea. The Jesuit maps depict California as a peninsula by 1698. California finally looks how it appears on the maps today by the 1770s. California cannot return to its natural state due to all the dams and levees. Egypt is Hamite land. Mitzrayim is a son of Ham. Hamite land stretched from the Mississippi River to the west coast. When Moses split the Red Sea, he was leading the Israelites into California, aka Canaan, the son of Ham. Canaan had 11 sons. Sidon is Sedona. Phoenicians are from Phoenix. Sedona and Phoenix were on the coast of the Red Sea. The Red Sea of today is the Arabian Gulf. Look, the Hittite Canaanites were from Canada, or Canada, as you can see here. These are Hittites. These are Hittites. They will die with the lie that this is their land. After the Israelites cross over the Red Sea, they stop in Elim for water. California has thousands of springs. Then they reach Mount Sinai, which is ironically near Joshua Tree. The first 5 books of the Bible are the books of Moses. Then Joshua takes over after the death of Moses. The Canaanites crossbred with the Nephilim, the fallen angels, which produced the Anakim and Rephaim, which were hybrids. Half giant, half human, like Goliath or King Og. Joshua and the Israelites failed to completely wipe out the giants and Canaanites. Some of these giants and Canaanites were very skilled and had iron chariots. Maybe they were tanks of some sort. And not all of them were evil. The Southwest has recovered the most giant skeletons. Giants are the descendants of the Nephilim or fallen angels, Los Angeles. This giant was found in Southern California and was acknowledged and purchased by the Smithsonian. It was discarded as a fake even though they bought it after scientists examined it. There were dozens of findings, if not hundreds. Look, Western America has the most on Earth. See? That's why there was the Isle of Gigante. That's why Ezion Geber means giant backbone. The oldest and tallest cedars are in the Northwest. The cedars were sent from King Hiram to Solomon to build the temple. Hiram was up here. It makes sense to float the trees down the Red Sea. This only makes sense in American geography. This doesn't. That's why this was found in Brazil. Cedars in modern Lebanon are too small and too forked for lumber. Look, these are perfect. California has the oldest trees, though one was cut down by mistake, as well as the largest trees on Earth. These are mentioned in Isaiah. Look, do you see? And Hosea. America is the old world. There are no pyramids on African maps until almost 1600.
But yeah, no, I'm not going to fucking stop my investigations. I'm going to keep on pushing out the truth. And I'm going to crush you fucking League of Pedos and send you to the fucking abyss and the depths of hell where you belong. Because hell isn't in the astral realm. Hell's somewhere else entirely, and only those who are destined to go there will see it. And there's 3 types. One's for humans, one's for demonic entities, and one's for the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, or the Nephilim, however you want to fucking pronounce it. But yeah, I'll leave it there. And I'll come back with another one. I was a lot quicker this time just because some tosser thought he could fucking use block capitals to intimidate me. Oh no, what will I ever do? But no, you've just inspired us to make another video, you thick cunt. And on that bombshell, I'll see you later, and I'll be back. Who knows, could be sooner than later. I'll see you later.